Okay, go ahead.
Alrighty, so my name is Dante Sienko, cyber insurance specialist here at the Agent Insurance Services, presenting to you from our lovely VIP room. Just a quick intro about myself, 2020 Westminster grad, business administration major, human resources minor, president of the Entrepreneurship Center, did some financial analytics with student analysis program, and deep down in my heart, I am always a baseball player. And I also wanted to ask, I see that there's a couple other people in here, if we could get some, just a quick intro about yourself, if you wanted to throw out, maybe a personal or a business note, either Jacob or Kathleen, if you wanted to chime in. And if not, we can go from there. I thank you guys for joining in.
Hi, I'm an operating engineer. My name is Kathleen Bettis.
Awesome. Hi, Kathleen.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you.
Good.
Kathleen, what part of the country are you in?
Rhode Island?
Oh, okay, cool.
And I'm on the far side of the country, here on Maui. I've 30 years into an IT career, and now going back to actually have a degree at some point.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate you being here. I'm going to get started with some quick yet very important statistics about cyber insurance here. This stuff it's no joke. When I started taking a look into this, it started out as kind of a back burner coverage, so to say, on your business owner policy. You get a little bit of cyber protection with your computers, but every day it seems to be more and more important. The statistics on here, they're really no joke. So just starting out, 100% of industries are at risk. We'll get into that a little bit later, but for the most part, if you have any sort of business that deals with any sort of electronics, one computer could put you at risk. 7.5 out of 10 business experience any sort of cyber event, whether that be as basic as a phishing attack from someone just sending you a link saying, hey, click on this cat, it'll be a good video for you to watch, all the way up and through multi-million-dollar ransomware attacks on businesses. As you see on there, most of them are delivered through email. One of these that stands out to me the most is a ransomware attack occurs every 14 seconds. That is a very true statistic. I see it all the time. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's down to around 8 seconds now with the amount of pure ransomware or malware attacks that we see. It's something that can't be highlighted enough as an importance to a business owner, especially the fact that you are at risk at all times. And a lot of these numbers, are very impactful and can do a lot of damage to a business. So with that being said, we're gonna go to the coverages that are offered for your cyber insurance policies. Let's see if we can get these all going here. Okay. So the first and the most common coverage here is going to be for ransomware or extortion. And that is coming in the form of a hacker sending either an email or some sort of notification to a computer that is going to be allowing them access to either shut down or brick your computers or servers. And the average cost of that is around $230,000, and that's continuing to increase with the more of these events that are happening. Social engineering coverage is going to be protection against any sort of fraudulent account that is acting as a false entity or a false person within an organization. And that is going to be, for example, if a CFO were to send the CEO an invoice, this plays into invoice manipulation as well. But the social engineering coverage comes in the fact of somebody acting as somebody who they're not. So a hacker sends an email to a CEO saying, "Hey, we need to pay this invoice. It's $250,000 for salaries or what have you." And that coverage comes into place when we're taking a look at reimbursing for social engineering losses. A very inconvenient coverage inconvenient occurrence that is covered as bricking. So bricking is when a hacker is able to access your computers and shut them down completely, and making them as useful as a brick. That is where the terminology comes from there. The carrier that we offer at my agency has bricking coverage that is very comprehensive. So if your systems were to be bricked and your computers are rendered useless, you're covered for that as well. You get coverage for having no use of your computers. The new cost to replace them is covered. Bring your own device coverage, BYOD, not to be confused with BYOB coverage. Means, a lot of employees nowadays are working from home. They're using their own devices. So bringing your own device, everybody uses their own cell phone while at work. Everybody who's working from home, has some sort of Wi-Fi connection or, their own personal computers that have access to be hacked from hackers. And those devices are covered as well, which is pretty important. If you think about how many hundreds of thousands of jobs are, working from home or working remotely right now and using their own devices, that is, obviously putting somebody more at risk than being on a secure server in the form of an office or, a protected server that extends their wireless connection. When you're using a personal Wi-Fi or a hotspot, that's much easier to access from a hacker standpoint. So that's something that, is highlighted in a lot of these policies, is the fact that your employees who are using their own devices definitely have coverage for that. Business interruption, pretty self-explanatory. A cyber event occurs and your business gets interrupted, whether that be in the form of loss in sales, loss in, activity in general, the inability to reach clients, the inability to present, the inability to sell, the inability to service accounts. All this business interruption is covered under this cyber insurance policy. And it's something that we see more and more of, and it's very, important to make sure that you're protected against that. Do we have any questions before I move on? Alrighty. So we're going to take a look here at some different scenarios, and excuse the numbering there. There's not really any rhyme or reason for that, but basically, ransomware coverage, we talked a little bit about it before, but it's going to be to pay the cost of a Bitcoin demand. That's usually the most common form of ransomware. We're going to take a look here. And so if you were to be sitting at a computer in an office, Skull and Crossbones pops up on your desktop there and says, you need to pay us some Bitcoin in order for us to let you access your systems. So as we all know, Bitcoin, very, very expensive. And the longer you wait, the more expensive it's probably going to be. So something like 6 Bitcoin would run you about 300 grand right now. So I don't know if you have that laying around to just throw away at some hacker. So Amy, the one using the portal, she has access to patients' health information. She stores personal information on there, takes credit card payments. So the Bitcoin request to unlock the portal is definitely very pertinent. the cyber insurance coverage comes into play when paying this ransomware amount. It's very common to see something like this in the form of a Bitcoin demand. So the first coverage would be that ransomware coverage. The second coverage is going to be the business interruption, the lack of income that she's going to experience because of this interruption. That is also covered. She'll be reimbursed for the amount lost. Reputational harm is also a big one. So to rectify, any sort of bad news, so to say, about your business that goes out, to notify her clients that, hey, we have everything under control. You don't have to worry about your information being out there, and we've secured our portal. We've secured all your information. You have nothing to worry about. Those charges are covered by cyber insurance. Forensic and legal expense coverage. This is something that our carrier really prides themselves on. They have 24/7 lawyers on retainer. So any sort of cost that is associated with taking a look at figuring out A, how this breach happened, B, how to rectify it, and C, the fact that the lawyers themselves are very expensive to look at all this. So that monetary value is also covered.
I have a question
Yeah.
about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll come over here so it can be so how, if you did get ransomware on your computer, how does insurance cover that? Do they pay the Bitcoin? The insurance company pays the Bitcoin, and then
It's a great question. Yeah. So what's going to happen with that is those 24-hour lawyers that are on retainer, you reach out to them and they give you the course of action. So they're going to say, hey, pay it. Here's money to pay it. Or they're going to say, don't pay it. We're going to figure this out. So they get together with the IT team from the carrier. They say, we are going to take a look at this. Who's the hacker that is demanding this? Is it legitimate? Can we figure out a way to get the systems unbricked or, get the ransomware off your computer? But if they do have to pay it, to answer your question, they're going to pay it.
Is there a way to get ransomware off without and a way to find the hacker? Because you're not familiar with that aspect of it.
I haven't seen it firsthand.
Okay.
I don't think there's a way.
I don't think so.
I think it's up to them.
Okay.
But I mean,
I'm no gets involved in everything.
Yeah, I'm no FBI agent.
Great.
I'm not I'm not some super genius behind the screen. I just sell the stuff.
Right, absolutely.
But
Cool.
yeah, it's very important. Jacob, what's your
Coming from the IT side of things, it is somewhat trackable. Bitcoin is not as secure as some of the other coins, and the FBI very much likes Bitcoin transactions. It's just a matter if it's going to a third world country or gets lost along the way where that money actually gets pulled out. There's a lot of it. I was also wondering, with healthcare or health insurance and auto insurance, there's a lot of proactive things that insurance companies do. Is there anything towards that on the cyber security side of things? I mean, do they audit a business's setup or anything like that, to prevent this from happening in the first place? Absolutely.
So there are certain requirements that companies abide by, and there's a lot of laws and regulations that are in place when taking credit card transactions, for instance. And our specific carrier here, we're talking about Wingman Insurance. I keep mentioning our carrier. There's questions on their applications that make sure that you're compliant with those regulations before they'll even write you the insurance coverage to begin with. So, you can't just be non-compliant with these regulations in the first place and have that would open you up to more risk of something like this happening. So to answer your question, yes, there are, you know, certain precautions that are taken by these carriers to make sure that, you know, they're not just insuring anybody with all this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was asking more so like my health insurance gives me a free gym membership. I mean, are they actually pushing specific, you know, counter intrusion and detection software being put in between, or is it really more you're driving your car and you hit somebody, you know, we know stuff's going to happen. We're just going to deal with it.
Yeah, so it is more of a you know, recommendation that you have these certain securities put in place. But to directly answer your question, it is more of a auto accident comparison where it's like these things do happen, and we're willing to cover you for them. All right. So this goes into my point that I brought up previously here. You know, some common industries, and you see everything in here from professional services to just healthcare to transportation, real estate. It's all on there. So the highest percentage being professional services. So myself being an insurance agent, you know, the first policy that I wrote in the cyber insurance industry was for our own agency. That's a very high risk area. You know, all of our clients' information goes through one portal or another with our carriers that we have. And it's very sensitive information. It's very personal information. And that's where the targeting comes from. You know, these hackers who are making ransomware requests, they know what they're targeting. They know where the money's at. They know what businesses need their systems to operate, and they go after it. So the one thing that I kind of wanted to also point out that surprises me a little bit about this, and I think there's going to be some growth in here as well, is that media, 1.3%. I mean, that seems very low, and this is in 2020. So maybe at this point it's a little bit higher, but I think that industry would be something that, you know, maybe that would be a higher risk target, you know, coming up very soon. I think that might have to do with the security measures they have put in place already. But I just wanted to point that out. I think, you know, that's something that is definitely wanting to have taken a look at. The public sector, that's going to be your personal, you know, personal computer that they are sending out blasting emails, trying to get anyone just to click on anything. So if I had to give you a piece of advice, obviously, if you don't recognize the sender, or even if you do recognize the sender, which we'll get into a little bit with the social engineering aspect, just be very wary of what you're clicking on out there, because you never know. So this takes a look at the size of companies that are attacked by ransomware. And you see here that the companies that have 11 to 100 employees take over a majority of this. So it's not just the big Fortune 500 companies that are being attacked. It's not just the mom and pop shops that don't have as much security. Excuse me. There's a big chunk here that is being attacked that are the small to medium sized businesses, and these companies tend to have a large client base, which is what they're looking for, is, you know, someone who's willing to say, well, we have a lot at stake here. We need to make sure that this attack doesn't go any further, so they're gonna, you know, pay us out. So that's where that comes into play a little bit. They don't go after the big Fortune 500 companies. They don't go after the big corporate giants that you might think that a ransomware attack would go after. It's the average sized companies from 1 to 100 employees. It takes over more than half of all these attacks. So something to keep in mind as well. So this is another case study that we have here, just a short little trip to Starbucks for John here. He's like, all right, well, I'm working remote. I'm going to go head out to Starbucks. Brings his personal computer to work on some emails. He's hooking up to the public Wi-Fi for, taking a look at some of that. And his device shuts down. His computer's done. He's trying to reboot. Doesn't work. Did you try turning it on and off again? The IT department will tell you. Doesn't work. And John realizes he has been bricked. So his computer is as useful as a brick at this point. And that is something that's very common. Bricking, as you see here, is a malicious attack by a hacker, leading to a complete shutdown of your device, no functionality at all. And this is one of the biggest things. And I get a lot of questions about this while, dealing with clients that are looking at a cyber policy is, are we covered if our computers are broken into and hacked into and aren't useful anymore? We have to get rid of them. We have to get new computers. We have to get new servers. Is that covered? And the answer is yes. Cyber insurance has come a long way from just a small endorsement on a policy to full-blown coverage on things like property, like computers. And that is a big selling point for me. I like, having the confidence and saying, yeah, you're going to be covered if, things go awry and you need to get new computers. And that could be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the size of the company. So, and you see on the right side here, if John's company bought the bring your own device coverage, his personal device is covered against this attack. So they're going to say, hey, we know you're using your personal computer here, but we're going to pay for it, even if they have no insurable interest in his personal device. So that's pretty big, especially when you think about people working remotely, working from home. There's a lot of peace of mind that goes into having your employees have coverage on their own devices, which is, again, a higher area of attack when you're working off of something that is not on a secure network or doesn't have the correct security measures in place. So someone had to bring up COVID-19, obviously, with everything going on today. It's a hot topic in pretty much any conversation you have. And the biggest couple key points here is, just because things are slowing down from a business perspective and things are changing from an overall standpoint, these hackers, they love that. They love the instability. They love the fact that people are working from home without these without these security measures in place. As you see there, hackers never go on vacation. In fact, they accelerate attacks against remote workers because there's typically less security. Employees tend to be more relaxed at home, and they're not really too worried about someone looking over their shoulder at everything they're doing or looking at on their computer. So they're more likely to click on a link that's going to pop up with some ransomware. As I mentioned a couple times already, privacy controls may decrease. There's not the secure network. There's not the checks and balances on what you're looking at. So you're much more at risk due to people using their own computers, being at home. And another thing here, the inconsistency in devices. Employers can't regulate the software updates. They can't regulate the Wi-Fi. They can't regulate certain downloads that might, pop up on someone's computer that is fraudulent or is social engineered by someone who's a fake account that's seeming like it's someone you might know. It might be as simple as the email being a dot instead of an underline, and you're like, oh, well, that's John Smith from my office. He's sending me an email, but really that account was social engineered to look exactly the same with one minor inconsistency so that you may be led to believe that that is a safe link that you're clicking on, and it's just not. There's another point on here. The IT service staff is overwhelmed and can't get to everyone. So as companies have, IT protection in place, they can only do so much. They're only, so big at a certain point. And the length of time that goes by without having certain checks and certain sweeps of computers ran, and, there's only so much they can deal with from a hands-off standpoint. So this is another big, a big claim situation we see a lot of the times with invoice manipulation. So we're going to run through this real quick. Paul's business, he's a contractor. He's been working for over 15 years. And he did work a long time ago for a personal client, and they sent him an invoice. And, Paul, he hasn't gotten his money. He's looking for it from the client. Feeling pressured by his own mounting bills, he reluctantly reached out to the client. The solution here, the lawyer explained that the victim of the invoice manipulation attack, he has coverage for this. So what actually happened here? So Paul is saying, hey, where's my money? The client's like, oh, well, we paid you, and the invoice itself was intercepted by a hacker who had access to Paul's email. And they said, hey, we see this invoice here for the money. Let's take that $7,000 because we know that the client's going to be paying it. So Paul's confused. Where's the money? The client's confused. I paid you. And the situation arises, and Paul's like, well, good thing I have my cyber insurance in place. Not only are they going to recover the $7,000 and pay Paul for that, they're also going to pay him $3,000 for the legal and forensic fees associated with it, $2,000 worth of notification costs to let the rest of Paul's clients know that, hey, there has been a problem. We are, taking care of it. You have nothing to worry about. And the reputational harm plays into that as well. We want to make sure that our clients have clients that know what's going on, and the lawyer costs there that are associated with that as well. So all in all, Paul's cyber insurance it's going to be very comprehensive and cover him in a situation that doesn't necessarily have to do with ransomware, which is the most common, but the invoice being intercepted by a hacker, that's as simple as, them having access to his computer and his server. And, this is another common form because it's less likely to be caught. It's something that is going on behind the scenes, and someone who's, sending out an invoice, they think they're just sending it to their client, and the client thinks, hey, I'm going to send them the money back. But the hacker knows exactly what's going on because they have that insider info, which is, it's pretty scary. Any questions about that? All righty. So there's a couple different breakdowns, to the business interruption coverage, and it plays out into these two categories here. There's system disruption and service disruption, system failure and service failure. So to understand this, it's best to look at it from an internal standpoint and an external standpoint. So for the system disruption, you're looking at a data breach that puts you out of business, or what has a loss that has come about in the form of profits, and this is the most common type of disruption. So obviously, your system gets hacked, computers go down, you're not able to operate, you can't sell, you can't take any sort of new clients on. You're covered for that amount, And when quoting this kind of stuff, you ask, what do you do in sales per year? And, that might seem like a questionable thing to ask, a business owner or something, and they don't want to, release that kind of information right away. But it's very important to know, because if your systems do go down and your business operations do get disrupted, you want to make sure you're being reimbursed for what you would have been doing while they were down. Service disruption is a little bit different in the sense that it's not your servers, it's not your computers that are down, it's a vendor. So for instance, excuse me, my agency, we're an Erie insurance agent, we're a Grange agent, Progressive, Foremost. We have a bunch of different vendors, we have a bunch of different carriers, if you will, that we deal with on a daily basis. So if one of our carriers, their servers go down from one of these attacks, we are actually covered for that as well. So the loss in revenue or the loss in additional clients that we may receive while they're down is covered. That's something that gives you peace of mind, saying, hey, we know it's not on you guys, but here's the situation, and you are covered for that as well. So the system failure has to do with non-cyber related attacks. This would be more of a server disruption in the form of technical difficulties. You're covered for that as well, which is pretty nice. We all know how that, could affect a business if something of that nature were to occur. The same kind of idea here goes into play with the service failure. That's your vendor going down for a non-cyber related incident as well. So the example here of Southwest Airlines reservation system crashing, this goes into play with all of these, because not only is Southwest experiencing a loss in, a loss in sales from a direct standpoint, but all of their, all of the vendors that work directly with Southwest as well, your Expedias, your other travel agencies that book with Southwest, they're losing business as well. So all of that is covered from a direct and indirect standpoint with cyber insurance, which is, it's pretty cool that, it extends out that far. And this is one of the points that's emphasized as well, not only from a standpoint of this policy, but when you take a look at, old cyber insurance coverage, it was just an endorsement, and none of this stuff was really, covered back 2, 3, 5 years ago. This is a new coverage, a policy that's tailored towards the attacks that we're seeing nowadays, which is honestly kind of frightening with all the implications that could come about.
I have a couple questions on that.
Okay, yeah.
So, is that coverage for the system disruption? Does that cover the profit or the revenue that you would have made?
So that goes from a sales standpoint. So on the application, say, how much do you make in sales a year, or how much do you do in sales a year? And it's 500,000. So you're down 6 months, and the sales number that you would have done is 250. Okay, so they would reimburse you for the 250 in sales.
Okay. And the vendor, so your service, that, so if, how I interpreted that was that if one of our vendors got attacked and that affected our business, but if our business got attacked and it affects our vendors, then you cover what the vendors would have lost?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that's kind of the all-encompassing,
Right.
Answer to all of it. Is this policy is tailored to take care of each individual, associate to be
Everyone affected.
Yeah, these things have such a wide reach
Mhm.
that it is really, beneficial to have coverage for all this. And it's honestly, I've done a lot of, research on each individual coverage and the system and the service disruption and failure. It's kind of crazy how comprehensive it is.
Right.
Hey, Dante,
Yeah.
about how much should you expect to pay for coverage this comprehensive?
It's actually reasonably priced. You would think that all this would cost tens of thousands of dollars, but the company that we go through, Wingman, it's very quick to quote, and it's also very inexpensive from an insurance standpoint. So it's a lot less than you would pay for property coverage. It's a lot less that you would pay for even certain liabilities that you might have. To kind of give you a roundabout ballpark, their policies from the base level have liability limits of about $500,000, and at the highest level, they're around $3 million in liability coverage. So with that, the baseline, you're looking at, I've seen them as cheap as $400 or $500, and for the most comprehensive, I've seen them go anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000. So, that's obviously situational and company dependent, but yeah, they're relatively inexpensive from an insurance.
And I suppose all that depends on, what kind of, the size of the business as well, because if you got a business that's got $25 million in sales,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably, number one, higher at risk than a very small business. And they're probably easier to, or it's probably more expensive to write. Do you have any sense of what that would be?
Yeah,
Premium-wise?
so I haven't personally taken a look at any $25 million sales per year cyber insurance policies, but when you're getting up to those numbers, it's kind of hard to tell because that's something that we would have to send out to Wingman, and we wouldn't get the quote back for, at least a couple hours or so. So they would come back to us with a number. But the stuff that we can quote in-house, I see range from, the $600 mark to $3,000 to $5,000 at the top end. If I had to take a guess on a company that did 25 million in sales a year, I'd probably put it around 15 to 20,000, maybe a little bit more. But that honestly is it's a shot in the dark because I've never seen anything like that. So don't hold me to that.
Okay.
But you're exactly right in the sense that, the size of the company, the amount of sales they do, but a bigger piece of it that I see the most fluctuation in prices, when you take a look at that company's clientele, what type of information are they keeping? Are they keeping personal records? Are they keeping credit card information? Are they keeping social security numbers? And the amount of clients that they're keeping that information for. So there's different tiers to it. It'll start out, 1 to 100 clients, and then 100 clients to 1,000 clients, 10,000 client or 1,000 clients to 10,000 clients. So it's kind of tiered off in a sense that way with how many clients you're actually dealing with.
Okay. That helps.
I'm glad it helps. That's what I'm here for. All right, so I would like to open it up before we wrap up here to a little bit of a discussion. If you had any questions about the presentation, any questions about me, our agency, our carriers, any sort of products, any sort of people that we deal with, I'd like to open it up to any sort of questions that you guys might have. It could be business, it could be insurance, it could be non-business, it could be non-insurance related. I'm sort of an open book.
Could it be how lousy you are at racquetball?
Don't even start with me. You'll find out tomorrow.
So listen, I have one question. Out of the total market space, what percentage of businesses are not covered for cyber attacks?
Do you mean coverage not being offered or coverage that
No,
they are?
no, out of the people that are out there in the marketplace, are only, 5% of the businesses covered for cyber attacks?
So most insurance policies do have a little bit of cyber insurance coverage on it.
So
Honestly,
on your commercial policy, it would cover for some events.
yeah, there would be certain situations that would come up that would be covered, but it's very carrier dependent, and it's also very industry specific. So when we take a look at like Wingman's coverage here, it's a cyber insurance policy that's strictly tailored towards this stuff. That's the most comprehensive. But the bricking coverage and the service disruption and the business interruption, none of that stuff is covered on a basic business owner policy.
Okay. All right. That's the only question I have.
Jacob, I think, has a question.
Jacob, what do you got for us?
Is there much insurance fraud in this? I mean, if I got hacked, quote unquote, and now have to pay 10 Bitcoin to get my machines unlocked, what kind of, process is done there to track down, bad actors, we'll say?
Right. So that's a very good question. And, you would think that in a situation that comes about with, paying ransomware, Bitcoin amounts, you would think there would be a lot of fraud involved. I think that is mainly why Wingman, our carrier, has 24/7, lawyers on retainer, that they're taking a look at the whole situation. They're evaluating exactly where the ransomware initiated from, who's being paid out. That sort of, situation is very delicate. So if I had to give you an honest opinion, I think there would probably be more of a more fraudulent activity in something like this, as opposed to, a situation where someone burned their house down to, get some more money for it than it might be worth. I think that, with the way the world works now, everything's done digitally. Bitcoin transactions are flying around left and right. You got Dogecoin coming in and, making a statement, and, things like this. It's the way that the world is shifting, and I think you're going to see more, fraudulent activity and fraud in general when it comes to stuff like this. I personally haven't seen it, a situation where that's come up, but I do believe that it's definitely out there.
Well, is there any cross-checking? So if I claimed all of our computers were bricked, just so I can get new computers, do you need a statement from an IT company saying, yes, they really are?
Right. Yeah, they would definitely, have someone come in,
right,
and, take a look. Well, they're not just gonna chalk it up and say, yeah, they're bricked,
Yeah,
let's
we
get
believe
your
you.
computers. We believe you. They're definitely gonna want, some sort of written statement and some sort of, IT department that obviously they would choose a third-party service to go in and make sure that, what happened actually happened.
right.
And that
That
goes
makes
back
sense.
into the, the lawyer aspect of it. They want to make sure that, everything's done by the book. All righty. Well, if there's no other questions or no other discussion to be had, I wanted to thank everybody for stopping by, giving me your ear here for a little bit. I know I rambled on about a lot, but I appreciate you guys in the most. And again, my name is Dante Sienko with the Agent Insurance, your cyber insurance specialist.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Dante.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Sounds good. We'll see you
Have a good one.
tomorrow.
All right.